Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to this episode of On the Pipe Podcast. I'm currently getting yelled at about something that is not my fault, but we talk about it on the show. It's a story that developed, and it wasn't my fault. You'll hear about that and a whole bunch more. This is the 3rd year anniversary episode of On the Pipe Podcast. That is right. Today is Wednesday, August 19th. 2 days ago, August 17th, was the very first episode of OTP ever. Our guests on that show were myself, my co-host Devin Byrum, and Paul Sachak with Armored Graphics. And we also had Randy Milling. He was here as well for the very first episode of OTP. He is not here tonight, but myself, former co-host Devin Byrum, and Paul Sachak all got together, and we had a wonderful conversation tonight. One of my favorite podcasts that we've done so far. A lot of stuff that we talked about from the beginnings of the show to a meal that was spicy but was in no way, shape, or form related to me or my fault. That's what I'm getting yelled at by right now. You'll hear about that and what caused it in the show. Some of our favorite memories from the show over the years, how far it's developed into now, and what we anticipate the show as well as the company of Armored Graphics coming to. And then we also talk about what in the world Devin Byrum has been up to since he abandoned the podcast that he helped start and named. I wanted to name it Left Lever Radio, coming in clutch. Devin Byrum said it was stupid. And then he mentioned On the Pipe Podcast, and that was like the 28th name that we thought of. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So he is the namesake behind the show. We started the show at his house, and him and Justin Hill play the intro for the show. We talk about that, how it happened and how it developed. All sorts of good stuff. A lot of good stuff on tonight's episode. So with no further delay, here it is, the 3rd year anniversary of On the Pipe Podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening at. Click subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you're listening. Click subscribe. You automatically get the episodes or the notifications of the episodes. But now, for real, with no further delay.
10 seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. And if you listen to this week's episode of OTP Tuesday, you heard on there, it is the 3-year anniversary of On the Pipe Podcast. Our very first episode we put up, it was only on Facebook Live, August 17th, 2017. So this Monday reached 3 years that we've been doing the show, that everything's been going on, and there's been a lot of changes. It's progressed a lot since then, and you guys are still listening, and we've actually gained a lot of listeners on the way to it. But tonight is a very special episode to me. I'm with the two people that are equally as responsible as I am for this podcast and the way that we're at right now. Our very first episode, it was when our co-host, Devin Byrum, was with us. Devin Byrum is with us tonight. And our very first guest on the show was Armored Graphics owner, man with the plan, the man behind the graphics of Armored Graphics, Paul Sachak, and then one of our other buddies, Randy Milling, Ranch, if you're out there listening, he was part of the very first show as well. But, so we're sitting here. We're at the place where it all started. It all started at Devin's house, and for people that have been listening since the beginning, you kind of know how the podcast started. Devin approached me, mentioned something about it. I had always wanted to do a podcast, so we jumped on it immediately. Devin is actually the namer of the show. He is credited with the name On the Pipe Podcast. And then Paul Sachak has been a supporter of my entire dirt bike career, really, from the start. One of the first people I met in the dirt bike world through TJ Snow and Carlo Gagliardo. And as soon as we pitched this idea, we're all friends and mutual friends of each other. And as soon as we pitched the idea of the show, Paul was on board, gung-ho, and ready and there, willing to help. So myself, Devin Byrum, Paul Sachak. Without everybody sitting around this table right now, there would be no On the Pipe podcast. So it's only fitting that 3 years and 2 days to the day later, here we are again. How's it going?
Excellent, man.
Pretty good. It's nice to see you two again. Like, it's been a while since the two of us or the three of us have been together.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have y'all back, and and everything that you've done with the podcast, taking it after I left, taking it as far as you have. Like, congratulations, first of all. And I still listen to every show, so I'm still I'm a supporter of this show now, and I support everything that you do. So first of all, like, congratulations on 3 years.
Thanks, dude.
Absolutely. Congrats on 3 years for sure. So
I really appreciate it. And so, and this is where we talked about it beforehand, but we struggle to.
we've already talked about everything good.
I know! But to kind of get it flowing, just like we've been talking all night, we're just going to forget the computer's on and everything. But before we ate dinner, we kind of did a toast, and I really do mean that without you two, the show wouldn't exist. It definitely wouldn't be where it is at right now. And I don't think it would have ever got up and rolling without the motivation from Devin and without the support from you, Paul. And just to give everyone a little bit of a backstory, we have gained a lot of listeners. I mean, Devin, you were talking about downloads a second ago, and we've gained a tremendous amount of following and listeners that listen consistently, which is really cool. But Devin, as I mentioned, you named the show. You're one of the hosts of the show to begin with, and now you and Justin Hill supply the intro for the show, which I think is awesome, and I talk about that every time. Paul, you designed both the logos. You helped us out with the shirts. You designed the shirts. I mean, the weekly graphics we used to put up. I mean, all this stuff. So, I mean, really everyone has had a part in this, and it's so cool to see where we started out versus where it's at now. And like you mentioned, all three of us haven't even been together in a while.
Wow.
Well, it just shows what you've done, what you've put into it, how you've carried this show on your own. And it's because you truly love the sport. I mean, we've talked about as far as show sponsors and all this kind of stuff, and there's other off-road podcasts out there. But as far
not real podcast. You ain't a podcast if you're on a damn YouTube show.
What I'm saying is, as far as just true love for the sport, there it is. So,
Are there other off-road podcasts?
I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding. No, and I mean, I think I still firmly believe that is the difference. I mean, if you look around this house right now, Devin has so much memorabilia. Like, there's so many jerseys, there's so many toys, action figures,
Action figures are not toys.
Like, diecast bikes. I mean, hell, your wedding is a damn number plate. It's a graphic on a number plate with the date.
Yeah.
Sick.
So I mean, that's what drove us is when I went to go buy me a Burr seat cover, and you said, "Hey, do you want me to send it to you?" And I was like, "Well, where do you live?" And he sent me a screenshot of your house, and my house is in the screenshot.
Yeah.
So I think that's what started this thing to begin with. Is you and I both had the passion, and where I feel like other people are in it for themselves, and they're in it to make a name for themselves, and they're just using this as a gateway to get themselves famous. Like, we just like dirt bikes. Exactly. All of us.
Yep.
Yeah, that passion that, I mean, I'll be honest, like, over the last couple of years, like, I kind of died off with dirt bikes, moved on to other things. But it was that passion that brought us together. And I honestly, do you remember how talk of a podcast came up? I don't. Do you?
What I remember is you randomly texted me one day and just said, "Hey, what would you think about us doing a podcast?" Okay. And then it was something in my mind because I think that was the year that I started announcing.
I was going to say, how did you, what would even draw you two guys together to do a podcast? You had to have already been announcing. Had to have been.
Well, evidently, once we figured out that we lived, you were literally in my back door. That didn't sound right. But once we realized we lived so close, like, you started coming over, we'd hang out a little bit. And I think I think you had turned me on to Joe Rogan or something like that. And I think that maybe is how.
When your cousin, because we were all talking about it.
Yes, yeah.
We were in the basement. Wanted to start a podcast or something.
Yes. Originally, he and I wanted to do a podcast, not necessarily about dirt bikes, but anyways, all that came to fruition, and it was you, Paul, that I don't think I would have been so gung-ho if it wasn't for Paul, because Paul was gung-ho from the beginning.
Yeah. Like immediately.
Right. And so I would say, Paul is the one that really pushed us to do that.
So my whole thing is 2017 is the year that I got hired on a whim with GNCC, and then I started announcing for Motivated. That was before Full Gas, so it was just GNCC and Motivated and just whatever I could get in at. And so we started the show August 17th. So GNCC obviously was started at the beginning of the year. Because I remember the first few shows I was kind of talking about my role at Racer TV and like doing the filming and doing that kind of stuff. So I remember us talking about it, and then because like you said, I was coming over here and like hanging out and eating dinner and that kind of stuff, and it all just progressed from there. Like as far as thinking about starting, because I'd always had it in my mind that I wanted to start a podcast because of how much I listen to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's like the most listened to person in the world and all that kind of stuff. But I was always afraid to start it on my own. And then as soon as you put the bug in my ear, I was like, dude, let's do it. Like, now we're both equally involved. Like, we're together in it. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I had no business doing that shit. I made myself look like an ass. But let me ask you this. Of all the ones that you've done, what do you think is your holy grail, your favorite show?
Listen, so this is one of the things that we pushed off talking about before the podcast so we could talk about it genuinely with the podcast. So I'm glad you remembered. Glad you brought it up. I don't know, man. Like, there's been so many of them, but what I always revert back to, and I feel like the evolution of the podcast from the beginning, like our overall goal from the beginning as to what it is now, I think is completely changed. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to do a Joe Rogan sit-down type podcast and stuff before, and now I've kind of turned into the only like weekly results and news and what's going on, what's in the now. And I've kind of gotten away from the one-on-one interviews. So I think the podcast has gone through a really big change in that with the OTP Tuesdays. But the one I always revert back to the most, man, and I mean this with 100% honesty, and I don't want to sound like I'm being cocky or anything like that, but I mean, this year alone, we've had big names on. Like, I've had like Stu, Josh Strang, Ricky Russell, Craig DeLong, Trevor Bone. Like, there's been a lot of people. Josh Toth, Ben Kelly. To this day, one of the most interesting episodes that I think there was the fifth. It was fifth. It was the fifth episode of this podcast, and it's what we started talking about earlier that we tried to shut down, was Glenn and Ken Livens.
It's funny you said that, dude, because I was fascinated just listening to their story. Mm-hmm. But as far as like a listener, I don't know if they'd get into it, especially younger listeners, Mm-hmm. But when they were here, like, it was fascinating listening to their story, because here's guys that started a moto company in the mid '90s, Cycra. They started Cycra Plastics, and then what they've grown into, and then how they even started. They started doing stuff for Rubbermaid. They signed their first $50,000 contract or something like that with Rubbermaid when Ken, one of the brothers, was like in bed, laying in bed, talking to Rubbermaid on the phone, And so to me, but I'm older, I find that fascinating. Whereas but that surprises me that you said that, because I agree. Like, I just thought that was fascinating. We had them show up. They brought a magazine bike and put it in the background.
And debuted a product.
Yeah, what was
the handguards?
The perch mounted handguards.
Yep, that's it, dude. Like, dude, on the Pipe podcast, like that's pretty cool,
My dad doesn't talk much about the shows, but he did tell me that was by far one of his favorite shows too. But I remember sitting there while the show was going on. Me and Tyler were sitting there. I didn't know what to say, But I was thinking, like, these dudes are in my house.
Yeah,
like, that's nuts.
Racing,
a magazine bike,
right?
Yeah.
I saw that bike in Transworld like that month before, and it's in my house. Like, how did this happen?
Yep.
It was you. You're the one that You're the one that pushed it. You're the one that got Glenn and Ken on with us.
Yeah,
and Basher and all. You helped us a lot with guests too.
And talking about that, and like talking about your support from the beginning, as soon as we talked about this and got shows rolling, you're like, hey man, I got this person wants to come on, this person wants to come on. So you set up the Glenn and Ken thing, and it's one of those things, and this is why I didn't want to talk about it before the show, but we go back to it, and at the beginning, I was so stoked when we got 100 downloads on an episode.
And you still should be, man. That's where it starts. If you lose that, just being happy with that, then you've lost it, dude. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But, like, just to think that 100 people downloaded the show, I was like, oh, my God. Like, dude, it's 100 downloads.
Yeah.
And I'm not even much more above that now, but it's just it's cool. The Glenn and Ken thing is this whole thing has been a little bit of a battle as far as getting the viewership and getting the name out there and getting the brand out there, in the sense that it's hard to get somebody to sit there, like someone that doesn't listen to podcasts especially. It's hard to get them on board and listening and coming on to the show. And I really want to talk about these interesting things and these interesting people. And there's so many like blue-collar racers that are in the amateur ranks that have really cool jobs, like ex-military people. Josh Koscheck, a UFC fighter, he comes out and races B-class. Like, there's so many people to talk about that is not on that front line. And the Glenn and Ken episode, to me, sticks out the most as one of the most interesting episodes because of that very reason. And I feel like it's almost a disservice to them because that was our 5th episode. So that was when we were getting 100 and stoked at 100 downloads. But as you mentioned, Paul, like finding out when that was the year that Roxon switched over to Honda. And so they were the ones developing the plastics, working directly with Ken, sending in plastics. Hey, let us know what you think. Finding out that they're the reason that KTM is orange now. KTM was white before Glenn and Ken Livens. And they came in and they are the reason that KTM is orange. They made products for 3M. They made products for Rubbermaid. They started Sycra. They went through the injection molding process. They talked about all of that. They debuted a product on the show with a magazine bike from Transworld right behind us. Like, to me, that sticks out as one of the most interesting shows, but it's also one of the shows that not many people ever heard.
Right.
No.
I do think, like, I do think that they probably rolled up here that day and pulled the bike inside, saw how ghetto our equipment was, and they were thinking, what the hell are we doing here?
Not at all, dude.
You don't think so?
Those guys, man,
they had to
they're
drive
so
2 hours
cool.
back home.
Doesn't matter. Like, I know them personally, man. They're so down to earth, and so there's no cool guy attitudes, you know. They were happy to do that. I don't think they were ever on a podcast, so it was awesome to them, you know.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing. They started Sycra from nothing, you know. And it's just, they see the same in the OTP podcast or Armored Graphics or Bird Seat Cover, whatever. Like it,
What?
It's Bird Seat Covers. Are they
What?
still around?
No, I heard he's dead.
But that's what I'm saying. Like they're down to earth, so they haven't forgot their roots, you know.
Super cool dudes, and I do got to issue a giant statement to them. I'm quite sure that neither one of them listen to the show regularly anymore. But that day that they were here, Devin, you probably remember this too. We kept thanking them for coming and thanking for doing this. Excuse me, and thank you for doing that. And they kept saying, "Call us at your 40th episode."
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll
Yes,
be on
you
your
did.
40th episode.
Yes, you did.
I was like, you guys got to come back on again. 40th episode.
What do you
Let us
want
know
now?
your 40th episode. Way past 40. So,
Well,
I'm
bring
sorry.
it on, dude. I've got to reach out to Glenn. Like, Glenn just sent me something yesterday, and I feel bad because it just popped in my head. But he's got a YZ450, needs something done. I'll bring it up, dude. Just bring it back on. See where they're at with their new project they have.
They also invited us up to the warehouse and the factory and stuff. We do need to get up there. That to me would
So
be
in 3
like,
years.
But
yeah, in 3 years to do it.
since then, they've sold Sycra.
Right.
Sycra got sold to a Chirby's.
Yep.
So what are they? I know, and I don't. Paul, you probably told me this. I don't know if I should say this on the thing, but
It doesn't matter.
okay. I remember when they did sign it over and sell the company that they still had a stake and a share and a say for a year afterwards. But I think even that year's transpired since then.
Yeah, they've moved on. They've actually started Dragonfly Brands.
Are they still doing Ride Crew?
They're still doing Ride Crew, yeah, which is Ride Crew. Bolon, which is they make foam decking for your boats and things like that, like custom decking, if you will. And then Hard Street, which they make hard saddlebags for all your street
remember
bikes
that.
and things like that.
They talked about that on the show.
Yeah, and so Mario Galasso is one of their partners who was, if anybody rides mountain bikes out there, as far as Fox Shocks, Mario came from Cannondale in 2003, went to work for Fox Shocks. and he helped develop what you're riding today as far as your forks and your suspension. Mario was the head engineer, and then he moved on to president of Fox, and then since then is retired. And Ken and Glenn have moved on from Cycra, and they've started Dragonfly Brands, which is Ride Crew, Bolon, and Hard Street, and they've got some pretty cool products that are going to be coming out soon. So still in North Carolina, based in North Carolina. So.
And I remember the Hard Street stuff was starting in that time frame.
Well, Hard Street had been around for a while. So Hard Street, they actually had Hard Street when they had Cycra, before Cycra was sold to Clyde Vickers Racing, CV4. But Ken and Glenn,
I never knew what that stood for.
They sold Hard Street. Yep. It's Clyde Vickers. I don't know what the 4 is actually, but
That's the Vickers of Brian Vickers, an NASCAR driver
correct.
too,
Yeah,
right?
it's his dad.
Okay.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know the Rob guy from CV4. That's all I know.
Rob. Anyways,
Shout out to Rob. Caliendo, you know him.
do I?
Rob Calendo,
It
Caliendo.
rings a bell.
That guy's cool.
Rob's pissed.
Shout out Rob C. But yeah, so I always go back to that. I still that was one of the most interesting, because it was so weird at first, like doing these podcasts, especially bringing people in. Like it was weird, but that was the first time where I completely forgot we were recording, and I was like, I couldn't believe what was coming out of their mouths. Like I just wanted to hear their stories.
Yeah, you forget to talk, you know. 'Cause they just kept going, dude, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I remember Scott was here that day. Scott Beard, co-owner of Armored, and Nick Jones, who was also a co-owner, Devin's dad. You were there during that episode. That's what I'm talking about.
What?
Of Ken and Glenn.
Oh,
What
You
are
don't
talking
remember them
about?
being here?
I don't remember Scott being here.
Yeah, he was here.
Yeah.
Oh,
You remember?
shout out to Scott.
What a waste of time.
Yeah.
I don't remember Scott being here for that.
Yeah, he
episode.
was. My dad was here too.
Yeah, I remember
Okay,
that.
okay.
He kept giving us Miller Lights.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, that's been another thing. There's been a lot of
There's a lot of alcohol consumed on these shows.
there's been a lot of sauced up OTPs.
Do you remember? Okay. Do you remember after one of those shows? I think it was with Trevor Barrett, Tyler Bruton. We all
Nope,
went to,
I don't remember.
We all went to Mayworks that night. Tyler was
He got
hammered.
kicked out, right? Somebody got kicked out.
Well, we showed up like 5 minutes before they were closing. Trevor was in his car getting yelled at for 30 minutes.
Let's preface this by saying, when Trevor walked in the door, we drank 11 shots of apple juice.
Apple juice, yes.
We had 11 shots apiece before we even hit record in an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, continue.
And
And then kept drinking throughout the show.
so when Tyler gets to drinking, he becomes this fella called Marty, and he's an arrogant
I was
asshole.
wondering what you were talking
He's
about.
a
Marty.
fucking gets on my nerves, right? So, at this point, he was trying to sell something on Craigslist.
And that's been tonight's episode of On
Anyways,
It was the quad. The King Quad.
yeah. So a guy calls him. Tyler tries to fight a guy trying to buy something from him.
But then we ended up being best friends after that.
It's a funny ass story. Yeah, just tell it.
Why did
Tyler.
you try to fight the guy? He wanted to lowball you.
No. Yeah, why?
I don't remember.
He walked,
I don't know if I was selling or buying.
He walks
He's one of
in.
those guys you look at and you're like, dude, I just don't like this.
No,
guy.
we were talking on the phone. I don't know if I was
Do you
selling
know
or
who
buying.
I am? That's what he did. And I was like, hey, I'd like to buy your 4-wheeler. You know who you're talking to?
It didn't happen like that. It progressed into that.
It
we
ended
were
like
talking,
that.
He started talking junk, and I started talking junk back. And
I
the
guess
next thing you know, we were talking
drinking
shit.
back then, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
dude.
Okay, this was during the show. This
was
happened.
after the show.
Oh god.
So
that
we
would've
drank
been awesome
before
to
the
hear
show,
online.
drank during the show. This was after the show. But then, like, after that, we both, like, he said something, and I started laughing. I was like, dude, like, that's something I would have said. And then we started laughing, and they were like, dude, hit me up sometime. Let's go ride. And he's like, yeah, for sure. But we were pissed for a little bit, but then we ended up becoming friends.
Did he buy the 4-wheeler?
I think I was trying to buy his 4-wheeler.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I remember it being a Suzuki King Quad, and I never had one, so I think I was trying to buy his.
Just for your trails?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anyways, that night ended with us going into Mayweather's. 5 minutes before they closed, he's hammered, talking some shit. Walked in with a wrestling belt.
I was the United States heavyweight champion of the world.
Of the world. And but anyways,
Like full on like real WWE championship belt.
Yeah, the one that's in here.
Yeah, with an
Oh,
OTP
okay.
sticker.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Been
my
upgraded.
wife's order of chicken
This
wings
is not my fault.
came out the hottest wings I've ever tasted in my life. And I swear it was because we went in there obnoxious as hell.
They
Like
hooked it
midweek, just five minutes before they were
They
closing.
just want to go home.
Absolutely. But shit like that though, man, that's fun. You're looking at me mad, but it's fun.
Dude, that was like, and like it's so weird thinking back to it too, and like that was when I was hurting. Like I wasn't working. Like
Yeah.
I was hurting. My roommate ended up showing up that night.
Yes.
My roommate had to buy my food. Like I didn't have money.
Oh, I didn't
My
realize that.
roommate bought my food that night, and like, it's just so weird to think like that was what that was the third episode.
Good
we had
times.
Vance and Evan Earl on second,
Yeah.
and then Trevor and Tyler showed up late,
Yep.
and that was the third episode. And we went to Mayweather's.
That was good times though. Real good times.
Great times, I guess.
So 4 was TJ Snow, the snowman. Pretty sure. Maybe?
I think it was.
I think
5th was John
Yeah,
Basher.
no, Glenn and Ken, because you were in back-to-back episodes. So is TJ. You were on the TJ show.
Yeah, but I wasn't on Ken and Glenn.
Yeah, you were.
No, I was not.
Yes, you
Promise you I wasn't. I was sitting
promise you
off to
you
the
were.
side. I was on John Basher.
No,
When
you were on
Basher
Glenn and
talked
Ken.
about pulling a 99.9 for Travis Pastrana.
Yeah,
and
then you
flipped
pissed
out.
me off. That was stupid.
Devin said, "You're the idiot.
You're the
No.
guy. That's what I was talking about. Last night I was watching those,
Yeah.
and then you did like a little thing on Facebook of like 58 seconds, and it was just that where Devin
Yeah.
finds out like
Yeah.
that's the guy, like he's here.
So to preface that for everybody listening, and that was after the Glenn and Ken thing. We were talking about most memorable shows. John Basher was going to be the next one. John Basher worked for MXA Motocross Action Mag for 12 years, and now he's the head of public relations for JGR,
He's head
Suzuki,
of,
North America. Now he's doing NASCAR stuff too.
No, not North America. Now he is only the head of digital marketing for Joe Gibbs Racing,
Gotcha.
NASCAR side,
Yeah.
but he still does the JGR MX stuff.
But yeah, I remember him coming on. He was talking about the Ricky Carmichael barn find article that he wrote in MXA.
Yeah.
But then that's the episode that we found out, and this is a preface to what you were saying. He is the head judge for the X Games.
Yes.
Is or was? Still is?
He is. He's in charge of all the judges, and
Yeah.
ultimately, it's up to him, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
But at this time, he was a judge. He
Yeah.
was the judge.
So
One of the judges.
and the thing that we were all just alluding to a second ago is in 2006, dressed in flannel on a RM 252 stroke, and we talked about this on that show too. Which, if you're gonna go back and listen to these shows, they are well worth the listen. But God, the
Watch
audio
them.
is absolutely
You gotta
terrible.
watch them. Those were recorded.
Yeah, they were on video. They're
were
on
hilarious.
Facebook. But so 2006, Travis Pastrana did the first ever double backflip. I will forever, for the rest of my life, remember exactly where I was and what I was doing that night. And it came up somehow about how he didn't have a perfect score. There was one judge that didn't give him a perfect score.
He was in my house.
And it became you have the
I have a model.
model
I have a
of
model.
Travis of doing the double backflip in the flannel.
History.
Yeah.
First double back.
On the shelf next to us, and come to find out it was John Basher
I was like, well, you can't have a perfect score.
that didn't give him, the only judge that didn't give him a perfect score. And Devin just looks at him and go,
You're the guy.
"That was you?" I was like, "Who is this idiot?"
Yeah, that's what he said. Dude, that was hilarious. And now, Devin's
Well, at least
got
we made it 6 episodes.
That's it. So Devin gets he's got jerseys hanging up everywhere. He's got a John Basher jersey. And it's obviously not now because everything's moved downstairs. But at that time, he hung Basher's jersey behind the Travis Pastrana double backflip
I did.
little action figure.
Yeah. That kind of pissed me off, though, man. That was stupid. I like John, though, man. John's a good dude.
I think his
He
explanation
don't know
ended
who
up
I
being is if you give a perfect score, then
Nothing
where's
will
the
beat it.
progression?
Yeah,
I
that's true.
get it. I get that.
In
but-
2006, that was a perfect score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you can't be a top 3 guy without tricking a double backflip.
Right.
But in 2006, That was Burger Store.
Yeah. That was amazing, dude. I still remember seeing the very first, watching Kerry Hart do it, and then Mike Metzger go back to back with like
On to dirt.
to dirt,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
85 something foot gap, or single back flip. But when Travis did that, that was awesome. But yeah, to think that Basher did that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Dude, and that's so weird to me is like, I didn't have a dirt bike until I was 21 years old. And I remember those moments. The Kerry Hart thing, that was earlier when we were showing that picture, and I said, spot the knot. It's from Ripley's Believe It or Not. I saw Kerry Hart trying the backflip on Ripley's Believe It or Not when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. And then the Mike Metzger thing, when he did that, it was at the Gravity Games, and he did dirt to dirt.
No, it was X Games. That was X Games.
Was it X?
That was
I thought
X
it was Gravity
Games,
Games.
100%.
Might have been
that
X
was
Games.
X Games.
But anyway, dirt to dirt backflips. He did 2 in a row. First person to do 2 in a row.
Yep.
And the second one was 90 foot. It was the longest backflip.
Huge. Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy how stuff like that sticks with someone. Especially me. Like, I didn't ride dirt bikes. I loved them. Like, X Games was my time of the year. I loved it.
What got you into dirt bikes? Because you came in late, and here you are hosting a podcast. Like, what got you in late? Like, what drew you? Just meeting like TJ or Carlo or any of those guys, local guys? What happened?
So when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I still remember this, and it's so crazy, but we lived in Louisiana at the time, and we went to a Monster Jam show in the Superdome in New Orleans. And in the intermission of the monster trucks, they did like an arena cross race.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, and like it stuck with me ever since then. And literally every birthday, every wishbone, every shooting star, everything was I wish for a dirt bike. That's the only thing I wanted was a dirt bike. And then I watched I saw a commercial one time on TV, and it was number 12 on a Yamaha, which looking back on it, I guess it had to have been David Villeman. But ever since that day, like Yamaha was the brand that I got in all the games. And then he was number 12, and I was like, well, he's number 12. I can't be 12. I'll be 112. So I was making like 112 number plates and putting them on my bicycle. And like I said, every single Christmas, birthday, everything, I asked for a dirt bike. And my parents always said, there's nowhere to ride it. We don't have anywhere to ride it. And I wish that I knew now that there's everywhere to ride a dirt bike, because then I would talk them into it. But that's it. Like, I was obsessed with it. Like, X Games would come around. I mean, I skateboarded my whole life. I used to be sponsored in skateboarding. Like, that was my thing, skateboarding and wrestling. And X Games every year. Like, I never really watched Supercross, which is weird. But I watched X Games. Like, freestyle motocross, I was obsessed with. I watched the videos. I played the games. Like,
yeah, same here.
Whenever I got the games, I wouldn't race. I would just only do, like, the freestyle modes. So that was really where it came from. And then when it was right after I turned 21. My roommate at the time had it, or no, he wasn't my roommate at the time. He had a KX250, and we went to TNT, and he let me ride his KX250, and then I bought a bike like a week later. So it's something that I always wanted and always asked for my whole entire life, and I never got one until I had enough money and was old enough to buy my own.
What was your first bike?
It was a 2008 Yamaha YZ250F. That almost killed me.
I was gonna say, is that what you were riding when I met you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it had the white throwback retro graphics with the red.
Yeah.
And then you made me plates for it.
Yep.
And then when I got blue plastics, you made me a whole kit for it.
Were you living here that whole time up before then, or did you just move here? Because the first time I remember really meeting you and talking to you was at some Mid-East race. You broke your lever. But
Falcon Farms.
That was still one of your first races, I thought, or somewhere near the beginning or whatever. But when did you move here to North Carolina, around this area?
I've been in North Carolina more than anywhere else. I moved to Florida and back a couple times in there.
Okay.
But I've been here the majority of the time. I never had anything to do with dirt bikes. So actually, I had an R6. I bought that when I was 19. I don't know how I didn't die or get arrested on it, so I sold it. And then I had a WR400 Supermoto, a 2000 WR400 Supermoto. It had muscle milk graphics, and it was like a steel frame with the oil going through the frame.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was a piece of junk, and it blew up like not long after I had it. And I brought it to Carlo to get it fixed.
Okay.
So my WR400.
That is what... Think if you didn't take it to Carlo, none of this... Who knows if this wouldn't be...
There wouldn't be
that's
an
where
all
it
the
started.
It's funny how like all that works. It's all it all works out that way.
The butterfly effect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Because Carlo at the time, like, dude, he does all the supermoto stuff and all that, and like, dude, I was the biggest squid looking back on it. Like, I ordered a used crankshaft from England because I didn't want to pay for a new crankshaft.
Well, that squid, it's just being smart.
Dude, I didn't even know
Super
where the
tight
air
with
filter
money.
was on that bike.
That's bad.
Yeah. So that's how that whole thing happened. And then I remember Carlo got me into like pit bikes, and I bought a 50. And I went to ride pit bikes with Carlo. And at the time, dude, I couldn't imagine. I was like, dude, you're paying like $3,000 for a dirt bike that doesn't even have a plate. Like, you can't even ride on the street, and you're paying $3,000 for it. Like, it was the most weird thing ever to me. And now I'm like full blown obsessed, paying $8,000 for new bikes.
Yep.
But that's how the whole thing got started with me riding. And it's weird to think how short of a time ago that it is based on.
Yeah, so 3
Everything
years
now.
since the first show. 3 years since the first show. And then I'm wanting to say you're probably riding a couple years before that, if that. So your
Christmas
progression in
2014.
this is, yeah, man. As far as like announcing and things like that, did you have anything like that in high school? Have you always been just as outgoing as you are?
Yeah, nothing formal by any means, but I mean, I was like the class clown, and
Yeah.
at football games, we had like our fans were called rowdies, so everyone was just super amped up. Our football team sucked, one of the worst in the state. But we had the best fan section. So like in high school, I was a class clown, like ragging on everybody, and then I was the rapper in high school, believe it or not. So yeah, I kind of got used to the public speaking and just being outgoing just from that.
Yeah, you're definitely quick-witted, that's for sure. Come up with stuff on the fly.
But 2017, that's when the GNCC announcer left, and they posted an ad for it. That Megawatt guy,
Yeah.
he left, and they posted an ad for it. And I was like, dude, there's no way they're gonna talk to me. And literally, the deadline was one night at midnight, and I submitted mine at like 11:58 that night. And I was like, hey, I'm Tyler. I think I might be good at this. And they called me the next day. I talked with Tim Cotter, and Chelsea Taylor was the girl over the PR media stuff at the time, which that was the whole
She
credential issue.
Yeah.
And then they gave me a shot. And before GNCC even started, Motivated down in Gaston, South Carolina, they were looking for an announcer. So I hit them up. This was like a week after I found out about
The
GNCC.
two-stroke race with Freddie Norton. Is that the one? Is that the only one you
It
did
ended
down
up
there?
developing because I announced their whole series,
Okay.
and that was part of the series. But before the GNCC thing even happened, like they had told me they're gonna bring me on and kind of work me in. I saw that thing from Motivated. I was like, hey, I'm one of the GNCC announcers. This is my profession. This is what I do for a living. I'll be your announcer, no problem. Talked my way into that one. So that was actually my first time announcing a race. Was down at Motivated the weekend before Big Buck, and then I announced Big Buck the next weekend with Weege and Rodney Tomlin. So my first time ever announcing Weege and Rodney Tomlin. Stu Baylor gets his first win ever, and then I'm standing around looking like an idiot, and the NBC Sports guy is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." He's like, "Do you want to come interview Stu for the NBC show?" And I was like, all right. So literally went from not thinking I was going to be doing anything to announcing during the live show, and then doing the NBC interview with Stu on camera after that for his first win ever. It's so weird how
Dude, that's
stuff has
fascinating to
happened.
me. I remember talking to you after that. Like, there's times where you call during the week, like, oh, I did this or did that or whatever, or we talk about, or I ask you whatever, but that's fascinating to me. But the fact that you just picked it up and just went with it, like, that's definitely your calling, You're really good at it.
It's all about building relationships too, though.
that's what I'm not good at.
To me, though, that's how all this. It's all in building relationships. I mean, that's how Armored is. Like, do you not feel that way?
Yeah, that's it. Just being genuine, but at the end of the day, it's just being who you are and being, I don't know what to say right here, but as far as just being true to yourself, if you love it, which you do, what comes natural to you, like you as far as speaking, things like that. It just kind of goes, just kind of grows legs and just rolls on, But it's who you know. But it's not about meeting people along the way to use them to get to somewhere else. It's about meeting them that, hey, if something good comes out of it, great. But if not, who cares? At least you got a new friend in the industry or whatever else,
Yeah. It's definitely been a learning experience. I definitely did a lot of things wrong at first, and
everybody does. But
just
it's
like
to
not
learn
knowing
from that,
Yeah, it's just not knowing.
Yep.
And getting thrown into it. I mean, my first job was with the biggest race series in the world.
Yep. But you crushed it.
And then I screwed it up.
You're just being yourself. But you're being yourself. You're being true to yourself, know?
Part of that was Marty being himself. But, yeah, dude, it's just kind of weird being full circle. But, I mean, Devin, you were around, you were the co-host of the show for, how have it been, over a year?
Right about a year, I think.
So what was one of your favorite moments looking back? Well, two-part question. One, what was one of your favorite moments looking back on it? And two, we talked a lot about our ideas of the show, our expectations of the show, and where the show could go. What has been similar or different to where you thought the show could go versus where it is now? I would just like to hear your perspective on it.
Probably the highlight. The Glenn and Ken show is probably one of my favorites. As far as
So original.
right, I mean, getting to talk shit to Basher, because I remember 16-year-old Devin watching Travis was trying to do the double backflip. I was yelling at the TV when he didn't get a perfect score. To finally get to tell him, hey, that was stupid.
Yeah.
That's what a pat on the back, right? That's cool too. But honestly, well, what was your second question? It was of all the ideas that we had for the show, where did I see it at this point? What was it?
Basically, our expectations back then and where we thought the show could go versus what is kind of transformed into now.
I feel like whenever we first started, it was so organic. We didn't know what we were doing, and you could tell. But to me, that's part of the entertainment. But I feel like it's developed more into a much more professional show, and it's not no longer really based on an interview. It's now just information about you're just bringing all this information as far as race results and all this different stuff. It's not necessarily an interview, and it's worked. And to me, in my opinion, it's working a little bit better that way. But it's all a learning curve, and we're figuring out it. You figured out what works, so it's all a guessing game at the beginning. But
to add to that, as far as like what you're saying, like where he does like OTP Tuesdays, where it's results or whatever, you still have your own personality, your own little quick-witted sayings and little things that you add. It's not just reading off results, which is boring as crap. Mm-hmm. But you interject little things into it, that only you can come up with. It's just it's your personality that comes out. So I think that's what works. But I think it's cool to have that because it's the results with a little personality behind it. But then you also have the stuff with interviews with top riders and industry insiders or whatever else, And it can be top-level pro to your local guy, at a Mid-East or North Carolina Hare Scramble or Citra race or whatever, And I think that's what's fascinating, getting to know those guys too. But you generally bring out those people because the average person behind a microphone or whatever else, sometimes they clam up, But you naturally, just being who you are, you bring out just the good stuff in everybody. You get people talking, So, but it's cool to hear about. You see pros on TV, you see the average interviews or things on the internet and things like that, but you get kind of behind the scenes to where your listeners are listening to, Josh Strang or somebody like that, or Toth or things like that, where you kind of get to know who they really are. It's kind of candid, kind of like this is right now. And so that you have that ability because you're not, uniform. You're not corporate uniformed, announcer guy. You're just a regular old dude, man, that likes it. And you get people to open up. And I think that's what's carried it, as far as 3 years later, here you are. Because you end up taking this on your own. When Devin decided to step back a little bit and focus on his upholstery business, things like that, like you just picked it up. You could have quit right there. OTP could be over. But you carried the torch. You kept going, And what's cool is you didn't forget about that. You didn't forget about, as far as Devin Byrum or you go back, you lean back on me as far as Paul Sachak and things like that. Like you're still grounded, you're rooted where it's at. And dude, you've accomplished. You don't think you've accomplished a lot, dude, in a short amount of time in this industry of dirt bikes. And again, it's not for money, it's not for whatever else. It's just because it's who you are. And you're generally interested in your guest, what they have to say. It really doesn't matter if the listeners. Hope they enjoy it, but at the end of the day, you're interviewing your guest because it's like you're interested in who they are, where they came from. And it's not the normal boring questions, like podium type questions. It's just, as far as a listener, you get to hear these guys, the guys you see out racing, that are on top, the top level of the podium. And it's like by the time your listener is done listening to these guys talk, it's almost like that guy, or you find something you relate to that guy. So I think it's cool. You're doing a good job with it.
Man, that means a lot. I really appreciate that, and I by no means wanted to do this to try to get patted on the back, because I still think this thing has a lot of room for improvement.
It does.
It's
coming.
Yeah, it sucks right now. But
no, seriously.
No, along the way, I've asked some really stupid questions. There's been some times where I want to backtrack and I really want to bite my tongue, but it's, for me, I think the coolest thing about this is, and I've said this in the show before, and I kind of say it halfway as a joke, or I don't really say it as a joke. People think I'm joking. Let me put it that way. People think I'm joking, but I seriously can't believe that people listen to this, especially the amount of people that do. And I said this on OTP Tuesday that came out earlier today, but from January until May, I doubled what we had done all time with this OTP Tuesday thing and interviewing people. And it really does. It blows my mind that people listen to this, because it started out in that bedroom that I'm looking at. Well, actually, it started out in that bedroom next to us.
Yeah.
And this whole thing just started in a little house in Gaston County with just two dudes just wanting to talk about stuff. And started out interviewing our friends, Evan Earl, TJ Snow, Paul Sachak. That's how this thing started. And now, and once again, I've always had confidence things, and I hate talking good about myself. But it's so weird. I'll go to races and people recognize me as the OTP guy. I went to Battle of the Goats, and I meant to mention this on the show yesterday, but I completely forgot. So pardon me for a second. I need to look up this guy. So at Battle of the Goats, I'm sitting there talking to these people. I don't know anybody at Battle of the Goats. I don't know any of the hard enduro guys. I don't know any of that. And I'm sitting there talking to these people, and this guy's like, "You sound really familiar. Who are you?" I was like, "Oh, my name's Tyler." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "I announce for Full Gas, kind of announce at GNCC sometimes. I have a podcast, On the Pipe podcast." The guy's like, "Oh my God, that's where it's from." He's like, "Dude, I listen to every episode." He's like, "I knew I recognized your voice." And these are people that I have
freaking awesome.
No idea who they are.
Yeah.
So and it kind of goes full spectrum, because there's guys like that, and then when the whole debacle happened with the Toth and Caleb Russell thing and the whole KTM team tactics, I went to Full Gas the next weekend, and Strain came up and asked me about it, and Johnny Gerard came up and he was like, "Yeah, dude, we listened to the whole thing. Everything you said was completely right." And Johnny Gerard's girlfriend was like, "Yeah, dude, I don't think you stepped on any toes. You said it perfectly how it should have been." And then at the time, Caleb actually unfollowed me. So Caleb unfollowed my personal account, and Toast Mechanic followed me. So obviously that thing made its rounds through KTM. So there's one side of it, these people that I will never know who they are, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all, but like these were like middle-aged dudes, just fans of racing, just out there watching. They recognize my voice and listen to my podcast every week. I get messages from random people about the podcast. They listen to my show. And then I got factory teams and pro riders that listen to my show.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Mike Wachowski, he'll come and talk to me about the show. Thorne Devlin, he'll come up and talk to me about the show. Like, Evan Smith on the 739 ride, when he talked about he was out camping in the middle of Nowheresville on the West Coast, he's like, I didn't have service, but somehow a bunch of OTPs had downloaded on my phone. So he's like, you literally got me through, like, 24 hours. I just listened to nothing but On the Pipe podcast. And so it blows my mind. This past weekend, this is what I pulled up on my phone. There's this dude, his name is Mike Flan. Completely unrelated. Don't know the guy. He's from Connecticut. He's a JDA guy. He knows, like, Johnny and Ben and Toth and all them. We were hanging out with some mutual friends. It was the night we went to the brewery with Dylan Riddle and Strang and, like, all these people. We were all just hanging out. And this guy was in town visiting. And we'd been talking for, like, over an hour. And then Riddle said something about my podcast. Like, said something about the podcast. And the guy was like, no, you have a podcast? I was like, yeah. He's like, what's it called? I was like, yeah, it's just called On the Pipe Podcast. And he had the same reaction. He's like, oh my God. He's like, dude, I knew it. He's like, that's you? He's like, I thought you sounded familiar. He's like, I wanted to ask that this whole entire time, but I didn't want to, like, seem weird or, like, say anything about it. He's like, dude, I tell everyone about it. Like, I just sent your last show to my buddies and told them to listen to it. And, like, I gave him, like, a stack of stickers. And stuff like that was stuff that I never in a million years would have expected to happen at the beginning of this. Yeah. And as it happens now, it blows my mind. Yeah. Like, you listen to it? That's my first reaction every time. You listen to the show?
Dude, I'm going to be honest with you. It doesn't surprise me at all. Because that's getting behind this thing from day one. Like, that's kind of where I figured it would go. You know? Like, it's not just... Like, for as far as Armored or a company, but forget that. As far as me personally getting behind, believing in you, which you didn't make it, Devin.
No, I quit.
Still. but as far as you, like I'm like, dude, you'll kill it. Go for it. Let's go for it, you know? Yeah. So, and here you are. So, I believe in that. But go ahead.
No, I mean, that's basically it. It's just crazy to think that... And I'm sitting here talking about it now, but I still feel like right now it's still in its, like, fledgling stages. Like, I still feel like it's not even close to the potential that it has. Yeah. But even the point that it's gotten to just blows my mind. And, Devin, the whole thing that this came up with us to begin with is, like, how yin and yang we are to an extent as far as, like, me being the announcer and, like, being the quote-unquote professional side of it, and then your personality and always joking around, like, how good of a tandem that would have been. And it was cool because you were there, like, cracking the jokes and telling Kyle Peters he's a pussy for not racing off-road.
I don't think it was like that. I didn't realize I had done that, but after the show, you're like, dude, I think you might have made him mad. You're kind of a dick. I was like, what are you talking about? You're like, you basically told him that motocross guys ain't shit and that they can't do off and stuff. I don't remember saying that, but I forgot about the Kyle Peters episode. But
well, that was also set up by Paul. We did that one in the shop at JGR.
In the JGR shop, or the conference room, but we got to go through the JGR shop.
That's when the Destination bikes were there for Barsha.
Yes.
Was it Barsha on the Destination bike?
It was.
Yeah, it was the Yamaha.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was
no, because Kyle rode Suzuki.
No, I don't know.
Anyway, it was at JGR in their shop.
Yeah. But
I remember you saying, yeah, like, jumps are cool and all, but do you think that you have what it takes to ride for 3 hours?
And I think he didn't know what to say. He's like,
I always wanted to try one.
He ended up doing one, didn't he? Or didn't he?
Yeah, like 2 rounds ago. It was the same one that Zach Osborne raced.
How'd he do?
It was the same one that Zach Osborne raced.
Which one was that? I can't remember.
I forget the names of them all.
2 rounds ago.
It was somewhere near High Point because, like, 6 of their 13 rounds are at High Point. just on different sides of the property.
Now, one thing I'm curious of is Paul. Now you see your Armor Day. You know where you started. You know, you and Paul or you and Scott starting in wherever you started, yada yada. But now you see the Armor Day on Carmichael's bike, on Reed's bike. So, what of all? Yeah, Chad Reed. Of all the things that
Not Reed anymore, but go ahead.
Well, of all the things that you've done, like what is Armored? What you think Armored's? So this is why I don't do the show anymore, because I have fucking mouth diarrhea. I can't talk. No, of all the things of Armored done, what's your favorite or most memorable, maybe?
Oh boy, definitely JGR. Getting that call from Jeremy Albrecht, especially 4 years before I met Jeremy Albrecht, or before we did JGR, I met Jeremy Albrecht, in the Atlanta Supercross pits with Shane Gould of Fuel Clothing. Shane took me up to introduce me to Jeremy, and I remember asking Jeremy, said, first of all, I had one chance to kind of show him that I did graphics, and I tried showing him my phone that, hey, we do Armored graphics. This would have been in 2012, so we were only a year into it. And of course, there's no service. But I tried to show Jeremy that, and then I just said, hey, what's it take to be on like the truck? This is when they were Yamaha. And so, he told me what it took to be on the truck, and I remember saying, hey, 4 years from now, when this other contract's up, I'm going to try to do this. And sure enough, 4 years later, we were there. So that was a highlight. Obviously, working with Ricky Carmichael's a highlight. Damon Bradshaw, talking to him, like that being my guy, having his posters on my wall as a kid, and then being able to talk to him for the first time, that was a highlight. But it's not only just the pro stuff. Going back to what Tyler was saying with the show, being pumped on 100 downloads, it transitions over to any business, because every business starts from nothing. I remember with the Armored, just our first sale, before we had a website, it was Greg Reynolds, North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah, pro. I don't know if he still races or not, but he was I think he was a state trooper in North Carolina.
Yep.
Just getting that first sale, so as far as true highlight, I don't know. It can be from getting that first sale, building those relationships, at grassroots with the North Carolina guys, the Mid-East guys, all the Woods riders, to going to Joe Gibbs Racing, doing Factory Suzuki. I mean, heck, I remember we were talking about Travis Pastrana earlier, watching all the Factory Suzuki riders back in the day, and who'd ever thought that we'd be working with Factory Suzuki, hand in hand on
Hanging
stuff.
with Lee McCollum.
Yeah, Lee's awesome, dude. And, but it's wild. So I can't say one thing really stands out. I know that would be awesome to say that one thing does, but I can't really think of one. It's really being able to see the whole picture from start to where we're at now and embracing all of it. I don't know if to me it's a blessing in a way to be able to look at it that way, being versus the guy that's like on to the next guy or on to the next one, or you're as good as till I get to someone next, that's higher up than you or whatever. Like I'm just happy to have be a part of. Dude, I go on Craigslist now, or I go on Facebook Market. I know it's going off the rails here, but as far as like Facebook Marketplace and things like that, and to go on there and you go to the used dirt bike section, and dude, there's Armored graphics on half the bikes I see that I scroll through, and it's like, holy crap, it's just wild to me to see that,
driving down the road,
driving down the road and see a logo on somebody's back window, and then you kind of get up beside them and you're like looking over to see who it is, and it's like, I don't know that guy. It's like, I think that's cool, So I'm thankful for all that. So I don't have a cool answer for you as far as like one thing that really stands out. It all does. So,
do you see some of those bikes for sale, and like it sparks, like you said, there's a lot of people that you don't know personally that just ordered graphics. Mm-hmm. Do you look through some of those bikes and be like, dude, I remember like I was in my living room, my son was crying when I was making those graphics, like getting them finished. Like,
yeah, that's what a lot of people probably don't know. It's kind of like when I think of I'll just say like Factory Effects or One Industries back in the day, which is now Decor, and InStyle, which InStyle's not around anymore. It's Throttle Syndicate. But I remember seeing these companies and growing up, like I was a One Industries guy, and just thinking it's this big, warehouse in Southern California, it's just this huge company, But now that I'm here, those guys are a lot like the way Armored is. It's like Scott Beard, our new business partner Gary Carter, Nick Jones. We're just regular guys that are. Sounds bad, but we're very tight, struggling to get by, not getting rich by any means. We don't have a big warehouse. We actually share a building with a regular sign shop that does like sign work for businesses and things like that. We share a space, It's we're smaller than what people probably think we are. But I have come to find out that those companies are the same way. There's a lot of companies out there that don't even print their own stuff. We print our own stuff. Like we source the material from Substance, who's another local manufacturer here in North Carolina that makes our vinyls and laminates. Matter of fact, the guy that started Substance, he actually worked for One Industries, and he was let go by One Industries. And then he was like, man, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to make something better, a better material, and here he has. He saw a need, but at the end of the day, we're just a small company, and a lot of these other companies are the same way. I don't know where I'm going with that, what the original question was or whatever.
You lost me, dude.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's but I just think it's cool that a lot of these guys in the industry that you think are the up and up or big and bad or whatever, they're just regular old dudes too, just like everyone who's purchasing our products, we're just regular guys, want to go out and ride too and support our families and everything else,
Yeah, I mean, going off of that, talking about the transition into it now, you guys just officially released your full website.
Yeah.
Last week. We'll kind of throw it up silently last week, and now
silent launch.
Plugging away more and more this week. For those that are listening that listen to OTP Tuesday, you heard my whole rant going on about it. But we talked about it a million times, talked about it on every show. Armored Graphics has been backing On the Pipe podcast since the beginning. And one of the things that you help us out with, and we try to help you out with, is the promo code. So OTP15 is the new code, save 15%. But the new armoredgraphics.com, what's this whole rebranding thing about? I mean, we dropped the X, we're spelling graphics right, spelling bee champions, and now we got the new design site. What's Armored looking like going from here? Because I know that the JGR stuff kind of consumed you for a while and kind of splitting up within the company. Just a lot of stuff going on. Now, Armored is the focus.
It is.
What's the future of Armored look like?
So Armored Graphics started out just like this podcast or every other company out there in the moto industry. It's like, man, we're going to be in the motocross industry. We're going to make a killing. We're going to go at it. Dude, it's hard. It's really tough. Especially graphic companies and suspension companies. I feel they're the most saturated companies in the industry. We came in right before that saturation started. I think the reason we're still here is because we've kept it small. Yes, we're on a national recognized team as far as Factory Suzuki, Joe Gibbs Racing. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of people outside of North Carolina or South Carolina don't even know we exist, But I think that's why we're still here, because I've seen, as far as graphic companies, I've seen a lot of other graphic companies come and go since then that try to get too big too quick. Or they'll run a sale. When things are slow, they put up a sale up every time. Well, when you run a sale every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're never going to get full retail. And full retail is what we survive off of. You have to generate a profit to support your families.
You guys did a buy one get one free kit one time, and I don't know why you did that. Just
I don't either,
that.
but it didn't do great. It didn't do great at all. It didn't do great at all. It was buy one get one of the same kit. Yeah, you get a backup kit pretty much, but for whatever reason. But at that time, there again, the only people that know about us are here in North Carolina. You know, we've never advertised, like truly paid for advertising. It's been word of mouth for 9 years now. We've never gone outside that as far as, you know, really putting anything into it. We just kind of trickle by. So yeah, so as far as Armored, it was myself and then Scott Beard and another fellow named Gordon Stigall that started it. And then Gordon moved on. And then Scott and I, Scott's got kids, I've got kids, and you know, it wasn't supporting our families. So Scott has taken a job working in the irrigation industry. And then I took a job working for Joe Gibbs Racing on the NASCAR side. And so to supplement those incomes for our families. And so since then, yeah, so Armored kind of got put on the back burner, even though we were still doing Joe Gibbs Racing, Factory Suzuki. We've never really pushed to like try to be super big or anything like that, which I think is kind of cool in a way because it's kind of like just a low-key company. Like me personally, when I buy brands or things like that, I like the brands that aren't like mainstream played out. I like the stuff that nobody else has, the low-key stuff, the things that are kind of core to the sport. So anyways, so Armored was kind of like just a secondary type deal. We kept it going, but we had our full-time jobs outside of that for insurance purposes, for families and things like that. But in the meantime, yes, due to COVID-19, myself personally, I was furloughed by Joe Gibbs Racing. So I had to come back to Armored full-time. So here I am full-time, and I've pushed to build a brand new website. Brought in a new partner. His name's Gary Carter, and his background, he's put together Super Bowl campaigns for Coca-Cola and things like that. He's got a lot of background, but he's a supermoto guy. He does some dirt. He's never raced motocross, but he did race superbikes professionally and supermoto professionally. He's got a really cool outside-the-box design aspect. So I brought on Gary. Scott still designs for us, but Scott works remotely from home. And myself, I'm at Armored every day working. I live 2 minutes from our office, so I'm there every day just trying to get at it. But yeah, so we launched a new website, armoredgraphics.com. Going back to what you said, so we started with our graphics was GRAPHIX, like the cool way to spell it, but that was really because we wanted Armored Graphics spelled the correct way in the beginning, but there was another Armored Graphics out there. I can't think of where it was. They didn't even do decals. It was something that I can't remember what they had to do with, but we couldn't get it. So the whole time, during that whole time, most people still, when they searched for us on Google, they spelled graphics the correct way, PHICS. And so we ended up being able to go back to Armored Graphics. I wanted to rebrand it to that because ultimately we do have to at some point do stuff outside of just dirt bike graphics. It's hard to make a living alone on dirt bike graphics when there's so many different dirt bike graphic companies out there. Dirt bike graphics are all we want to do because it's the funnest thing to do. But I look back at like Throttle Jockey, who does all the factory Honda stuff. Dude, they just do that for fun. Like, their main deal is regular sign work, regular business logos and things like that. That's how they make their money, their real money, versus factory Honda, you know. So we're not doing the full on sign stuff yet. We're still just doing dirt bike graphics, but we do offer those services. So as far as armoredgraphics.com, if you go on there now, we did do a silent launch last Thursday, I believe, and right now, like, it's a work, basically like you said, Tyler, for your last few shows. Go to armoredgraphics.com, blah blah blah, and you know they're constantly adding stuff. Well, that's true. Like, we're live now, we are adding new stuff, but I think to go live, we've got enough. That's some really cool stuff to offer already. You know, and if there's something, if you go to armoredgraphics.com and there's something that we don't have that you like, we can do it. All you gotta do is contact us. We'll make it happen for you. So, but we're still here because we love it. I love dirt bikes. I'm looking forward to getting back to the Mideast Hare Scrambles, North Carolina Hare Scrambles, getting back to the woods, all that kind of stuff. What's funny is, man, I hear people say, like, because I had to step away to the NASCAR side of things, and Scott had to step away to irrigation stuff, we'll run into, racers or riders or whatever, and it's so, I can't stand to hear it, but they're like, oh, I know you're on the, you don't care about, I'm just a regular little guy, and you're on the factory Suzuki and don't care about the, like, dude, that's bullcrap, dude. Like, that's insulting in a way, We're just regular guys too, and we're not making it at all, Like, I care about the little guy. Every customer is the same. So what if we do factory Suzuki? The guy who orders graphics from us gets the exact same thing that they do. No one's better than the other, So
Yeah.
my heart is still in the woods, as far as off-road. That's where I want to be. So we're going to be at the North Carolina. I'm going to be at North Carolina Hare Scramble on the 30th at Shane's Farm. Just kind of hanging out, just going to spectate and watch
We don't
somebody's
talk
ride.
about them on this show. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't know. So, but yeah, so that's that, man.
I know a guy that might need 99 KDX 220 graphics coming up. But, no, it's really cool because especially during that time where I met you at the Falcon Farms, that's when Rob Mitchell was there filming for his movie and everything. That's one of the first times I hung out with you. It was a mud race and everything. Dustin was there. Dustin Simpson, friend of the show. But like back in those days, dude, 9 out of 10 bikes you saw had armored graphics.
Yeah.
They had that damn the paint van kit, or they had the snow kit, and like all the OG armored kits. Every bike you looked at had some armored graphics on it, and it was cool to see back then, like you said, catering to the local people. And now, since then, dude, woods racing has grown tremendously. Like, there's so many people racing in the woods. And so to be able to get back in that market and have a presence at the racetracks, like, it's there. But, no, it's really cool. And like I mentioned, I appreciate everything you've done for us and done for the show and done for me as a person. I mean, I really appreciate it.
We've had a lot of good talks, man.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing the whole promo code, the OTP 15, save 15% on your graphics, that Armor Graphics, and even on the old site it was just OTP, and that was doing it too. And I know people will call you and mention it, so it's cool to see it grow that way. And I meant to talk to you about this before the show, but we didn't, so here it is. But I know we talked about something about giving away a kit.
Yeah.
So we just got to find the parameters of that and what we're going to do. But coming up, OTP is going to give out a Armored Graphics kit, your kit of your choice for whatever bike you want. We just got to figure out how we're going to do it and how we're going to set it up. But one thing that I want to do that I had not talked to you about is we're trying to drive people to this site, trying to get people on Armored Graphics, get this thing going again. For the first 5 people that put their phone on vibrate during a podcast. No, I'm just kidding. For the first 5 people that order a kit, I'm gonna. You didn't get it.
Yeah, I got it. It took me a minute. I was like, what?
For the first 5 people that order a kit through the site and use promo code OTP15, I want to match their 15%. So I'm gonna come out of my pocket and I'm gonna match their 15%.
That's 30%. Wow.
Oh, God.
Wow.
So you're talking about, that's pretty damn close to half off. So right now, if you're going to armorgraphics.com, you're ordering a kit for your bike, put it in promo code OTP15. The first 5 people are going to save 30% because I'm going to match that 15% that you guys are already doing.
Sweet.
I just think it'll be cool. And then we're going to give away a free kit at some point too. So
I like it. That's cool. That works.
Devin.
No.
Don't give me that look. So I want to say it wasn't planned, but it kind of was planned. Part of the reason that you were stepping away, you have your upholstery business,
Yeah.
Byrum Upholstery, in great Belmont, North
Historic Belmont, North Carolina.
Historic Belmont, just down the road from the Jonas Brothers restaurant.
Yeah. Same road.
Same road. So you stepped away to focus on that, and you also stepped away to focus on music, because that's right when you were getting reinvigorated in drumming, which we've talked a lot about, obviously off air, but kind of that's your passion, that's your thing, that's what you grew up on, that's your escape, if you will.
Yeah.
And at the time, you were getting together and forming a band with Graham and Red and Brent.
Jake.
Okay, yeah, that was the first one.
Yes.
The Paper Windmills. So
Yeah.
you were in the process of forming that. You guys formed your own band, did a couple shows, played a couple shows.
Yeah, we played for about a solid 8 months.
Was it really that long?
Yeah. We played quite a bit of shows too. But yeah, we kind of went in after I left the show and everything. I was in a band with some guys, and I did that for a little bit, and then through contacts, through dirt bikes and stuff, I was able to play with Justin Hill, who does his music and stuff too. But yeah, I mean, but it's still kind of, I still play, but I don't know. It's just, I quit everything.
Talking about I still play. There's 18 sets of drums in that room right there.
I'd love to be playing shows right now, but I'm not really in a band right now, though. But yeah, my passion was always drumming, but it came in spurts. But yeah.
So I'm not musically inclined at all, so I respect that a lot. And I remember like the first time listening to you play drums, like just watching someone play drums and knows how to play drums. It's so cool to see.
It's different with him, dude, because I can sit. I've tried to secretly record him when I'm over here, and he gets to playing drums because he can go from hip hop to hard metal to jazz to blues or whatever, and
to some
it's
tribal
all in the
sound
same
stuff.
thing. Like it just. The way he blends it all through, he'll just be goofing off, and it's like, God, I wish people could hear this, man.
But it's cool the way, obviously you had the Paper Windmills, you guys played a little bit, for 8 months, so that's a lot of it. But like you mentioned, one of the coolest things about that, I guess I'm biased, but I thought one of the coolest things about that is somehow, some way, through mutual connections, through playing music, I was actually at the show with the Paper Windmills that Justin Hill came up to watch.
Justin and almost the whole damn JGR team. I was nervous as shit for that show. But yeah, you were there. Actually, it's funny because we've had good shows, and we've had bad shows. Like you've been to. I think that that show at Snug Harbor was a good show. The show that Justin and them came to, but the show before that is like. You were like, am I at an ATV Full Gas or am I at a damn Paper Windmills concert? It's like 4 people there, but yeah, it's all. It's funny how all that worked out though. So Justin, like literally that next day, I think after that show, all of us went out and hung out on the patio. I think it was like the next day or something. He was over here and we were playing together.
Yeah.
And then that kind of took off because I quit that other band because Graham's a weirdo. And
shout out Graham.
I like Graham. He ain't listening to this. I don't give a shit.
Who works at the Jonas Brothers restaurant?
No, he moved to Richmond.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Tearing down monuments.
Shout out
shit.
Richmond.
But
no, so for me, dude.
You heard that?
And Justin is most likely not listening either. But
no, I called him today. I was like, "It's like, what's up, Justin?" He's like, "What's up, Kevin?" I'm like, "No, it's Devin." Yeah, whatever, Derek. No, but yeah. I mean, you kind of hung out for all that, and I think even Justin gave you some guitar lessons. Now you're playing ukulele and stuff. Music's fun, dude.
It is. I'm not musically inclined at all, so that's why it's cool to watch you guys. But I think it was one of the first few times we went over to Justin's house. But like, and this is why I said I hope Justin's not listening. But I remember going to Justin Hill's house. He's got his championship-winning 250 Supercross bike in his kitchen.
Yeah.
And I remember us like fangirling out and taking pictures on it, like
holding the number one plate. Yeah,
I got pictures of you holding his trophy above his bike in his kitchen.
Yeah. With the Anaheim trophies, all kinds of stuff, and it's like, wow! I remember they were all upstairs. Like there was a bunch of people there that day too.
Mm-hmm.
Nicoletti,
Kyle
Josh,
Peters was there.
Kyle Peters, Josh was there. Josh Hill, Justin, Patrick Evans. Oh, just a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
And I remember me and you had ended up downstairs with that bike, and I think it was just me and you. And I was like, can you believe we're freaking here right now?
But, he's got a NASCAR in his garage.
Okay, Justin has a street legal Xfinity car that he bought from Joe Gibbs or whatever. I think it's in Oregon. He took it to Oregon, I think. But
Just sit in his garage.
Sure as shit. He's got it. I mean, it looks just like an Xfinity car.
Just black.
It's all black,
Yeah.
but it's got turn signals and lights, and it's got a tag. But other than that, it's straight up NASCAR race car. He's got to run race gas and all kinds of stuff. And it's got 2 seats too. It's got a passenger seat. I never got to ride in that thing though. I wanted to.
Dang.
But yeah.
So I remember the first time I went over there, which was still one of your first times,
Yeah.
like within the first few, going over there. I was like, dude, you sure? Like, I don't know about that. But that's when we walked in and Josh Hill was there. And he was just like sitting there like playing video games. Like literally sitting on a stool with a saddle playing Red Dead Redemption.
Yes, he was sitting on a saddle.
But we walked in and like we're just kind of sitting there talking and like offered us a beer, so we started drinking beer. Well, then Josh Hill came over. It was like, "Hey man, I'm Josh." I was like, "I know who you are. What do you mean? Hey, you're Josh. Like I know you're Josh." But no, dude, that was surreal for me just tagging along and being the extra and like sitting up in his room like singing songs while you guys are playing. So
Yeah.
let me take that back. One of my favorite things. It directly relates to the podcast in a roundabout sort of way, but when we're talking about favorite moments, this is one of my favorite moments of my life, not just a podcast. But the night, there was 2 nights in particular. One night we went over there and Freddie was there, and everyone was just jamming out, and like just a whole bunch of really cool stuff happened that night. But then another night was the night that Justin was there, and you guys started playing something. I think Brent was there, and you were there. And you guys started playing something, and then all of a sudden Justin breaks out a notebook. He's like, dude, I gotta write this down real quick. And he started writing down lyrics. And then you started working on your melody on the drums, and Justin started working on his guitar chords, and then Brent put a bass thing to it. And basically, in the sequence of a night, you guys went from nothing to writing and recording an entire song in one night.
Fascinating.
And that was one of the, like, no lie, like podcast, dirt bikes, everything aside, that is one of the coolest things of my life. Is to watch you and Justin Hill and Brent just come up with a song out of thin air. Like, dude, it was so cool.
That was mostly Justin, though. 100% Justin is a talented musician.
Very talented. And he is much more focused in that than racing dirt bikes.
His results would say so, yeah.
I'm kidding.
but
Yeah.
But
Shout out Justin!
I'm telling you, man, if he pulls the trigger and really tries to go for that, the dude, he can write really good music. Good lyrics too. Very intricate lyrics if you really dissect them. And to me, like, I get just as fascinated. In my opinion, a guitar is a musical instrument. If you play guitar, you're a musician. If you play flute, that's got notes. That's musicianship. To me, drums is just hitting something. You know, I've always considered, like, playing with paper windmills. I was playing with a band. Those guys' musicianship by far surpasses anything that I could do on the drums. So I've always considered it like three musicians and a drummer. But you feel that way, but it's true. Anyways,
You're the one that taught me that the drummer leads all the music.
Oh, you are
like,
the
all
timekeeper.
musicians are listening to the drummer.
You're the timekeeper,
But
but
you're
they're
not.
the musicians. They're the musicians. They're playing the notes. They're doing. I will say this though: a guitar solo will not make somebody move. A damn drum solo will make somebody move.
Absolutely.
You know? But regardless of that, I get as fascinated as it seems you are with us making the music. I get just as fascinated watching those guys. I mean, I've got my part in it. I've got my voice in what they're playing in the music, but they're the musicians. And Brent, Justin, and Red. I don't know if you've ever met Red. He was the stand-up bassist.
Red Brandenburg.
in the
It's
Paper
one of the
Windmills
coolest
band.
names I've heard.
Oh, he's yeah. But he's played at the Ryman before. I mean, he's an unreal musician. Yes,
Yeah, I might know that.
absolutely. But to me, like, I get so fascinated at their musicianship because I don't know what notes are. I've tried to play guitar. That's a language I don't understand. I don't know chords. I don't know, that's musicianship in my opinion. But you know, Justin Hill, whenever he pulls the plug or pulls the trigger and really wants to go for music, I 100% think he can. He's got the talent to do it. And I've heard him play things that no one, has any idea how the talent that this guy has. So really, it's just as fascinating for me to get there, play with him too, to watch him, and I learned through him too. But
this whole thing wasn't just about Justin Hill. I mean, obviously that adds a big element to it. But you, as much as you like to divert credit away from yourself, whether it be drums or seat covers that you have legends saying is the best seat covers they ever ran in their life, that your friend made.
My grandma.
No, like as much as you like divert stuff away from yourself, you are very talented of a musician. You are very talented of a drumming. It's not just hitting something, because I can't go in there and hit them damn things and make it sound like anything. So there's a lot of musicianship to that as well, and you know that deep down. So it's really cool to think that in that amount of time since you left the podcast, I mean, you played on the same stage that Nirvana played at.
Yeah, Nirvana, REM. Yeah, that too. Like, there's things that we were able to do with that band, and that I was able to do that I kind of hold up on a pedestal, But yeah, I don't know. I ain't doing. Yeah, it is.
I think it's pretty cool, dude. But being that you have like all your Rush posters and Nirvana posters in your room in here, and then being able to play on that same stage that Nirvana played on, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah,
dude.
that was a pinch me moment. But yeah, it is what it is.
No big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't know what to say.
I mean, plus, how does that make you feel knowing that you're the intro to the On the Pipe podcast?
First of all, the recording is awful. It sounds like we recorded it with a potato. If Justin would send me the right file, we would have a much cleaner version. But
is it before or after the guy jumps the 10-second start?
It's a different intro, because now it's that.
Thanks for listening to the show, Paul.
Yeah. It's that Big Tom is like, is this where the drummer?
Yeah, I know.
Big Tom's Caldwell.
Yeah.
I don't think there's not dirt bike. There's still 10 seconds.
Yeah, there's 10 seconds.
But there's not dirt bike noises.
Not the guy taking off right after.
There's shows that like to copy everything that I do. And so the old intro was Marvin Muskin on that 150. Like just shredding it. That was the engine noises.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Huh. So now, and I've kind of put that whole thing together, but now some of the podcasts that like to copy us use the same exact engine clips for their intro.
Ooh.
They're going to do an anniversary show next week.
With Glenn and
Probably so. Hey, let's check and see how long we've been on air so we can friggin' talk about a podcast that we don't have.
Our podcast on YouTube. Oh, God, we don't need to talk shit.
But, dude, it's kind of ridiculous at this point. Because same thing, they haven't done a show in a while. I put a show up, they put a show up. Their shirts look exactly like mine. Their ads look exactly like mine. They talk about the shit on Thursday that I talk about on Tuesday.
But you're talking about the same races at the end of the day. Yeah, in my opinion, you're talking about the same guys. Honestly, I've never listened to any other show other than this one, but
that's what I like to hear. Paul hadn't even listened to this one, so you're one step
right.
No, I don't mean to talk junk. I'm just serious. But
I did watch one, not an OTP deal, and it was just pretty. Yeah. Anyways, it's for something you thought would be more professional than it was. It was not at all.
Look at our first shows, man. Look at our first shows.
It doesn't matter.
There was content there.
This person's been at the top, and you'd think they'd have a better production show than what they had. So.
Now I'm interested to know who you're talking about. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be as good as OTP. That's what it boils down to. No, so we're sitting right here on First Street. This is where everything started. The name of the intro music is First Street. And I think it's sick. Like, you sent me a few different files when I first asked, like, hey, can you guys do an intro? And then this is the one that ended up happening, which it's the one that I like the most. It's I'm pretty sure it's one of the ones that I was here when you guys were developing it.
Probably.
And then it's cool that it's actually named after where the whole podcast started. So it's really cool to see how that all came together and how that's now the intro for the show.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah,
that's why I talk about it every show.
So much has happened in this house, man. I remember when we first kind of started getting these bigger names, like when, with Basher and, all these guys I never would expect to have in my house. And I remember you, Paul, telling me, we were in it about 2-3 months, and you were like, man, look at all the people you've had in your house. Whenever we first started the podcast, I wasn't living in this house very long. And and that always kind of brought it to light is like, look at all that we have done in this house,
Yep.
It's cool, man. I've enjoyed this ride. And really, I've been away from the show for a while, but like it's all been a ride with you guys, all meeting y'all. And we've all kind of became pretty good friends too. Aside from dirt bikes, all that, you've talked to me about some personal things, like helped me through things. And Tyler, you've done the same thing. And it's more... You know what? Aside from the podcast and stuff, the friendship that I have now with you guys, like,
amen, dude.
It's to me that surpasses that kind of surpasses the podcast in a way. Whenever you really think about it, and the friendships that I do have with two of you, and the people that we've met through the show and stuff. I mean, it's all been a ride, and after 3 years, I think what. Let me ask you, Tyler, what do you see OTP 3 years from now?
That's a question I wasn't expecting. I haven't thought about. I don't know, man. I mean, on one hand, it's easy to sit here and say that I expect it to be farther along than it is now. And on the other hand, it's easy to sit here and say I can't believe I'm still actually doing it. Mm-hmm. Like Paul said, this whole thing kind of took a lot away from me.
Oh, yeah. Come here.
A lot away from me in particular.
Awesome.
With having a co-host and having someone there to bounce stuff off of and not being the sole proprietor of the show and coming up with stuff. But I don't know, man. It's been cool. And then, like Paul mentioned earlier, when you decided to do music and step away and all that, it would have been very easy for me to just abandon it and give up and say, well, I mean, it was a good run. Because honestly, at that point, it really wasn't that big. I mean, we were kind of making some waves, people heard of us, but it wasn't huge. I mean, it's still not huge, but now...
And that's not even what it's about, it's being huge. It's just about it's the passion of it. So yeah. That's why you're still here.
Yeah, and like even now... They'll go months at a time where I don't even look at downloads. And I just sit here and turn on a mic and hit record and start talking because I want to talk about it. And there's people out there that want to hear it. And I still, like I said, I can't believe that people listen to it. So it's really cool. And it's also, it's put it in perspective to me. Like, now's for Full Gas, now's for GNCC. Like, I don't think I would be back on GNCC if it wasn't for the podcast. I don't think I would have the friends and the relationships I do in the industry if it wasn't for the podcast. Mm-hmm. I got some really cool things lined up for next year. Hopefully, that's all because of the podcast. Like, even things as simple as like, and this sounds so stupid, especially how we were talking about like you playing music with like Justin Hill and all that. Like, I play Call of Duty with Josh Strang almost every night of the week, and honestly, like, Josh and I have become like really good friends because, I mean, we play Call of Duty together like 2 hours a night every night.
That's so cool, man.
And I feel like a lot of that is from the podcast. Like, Caleb Russell has posted some of my stuff on his Instagram from the podcast. Like,
before he quit following you?
Yeah. He still follows OTP. He doesn't follow T-Shep's OTP. But like, he'll go on and like my stuff, and like Maggie Duvall likes my stuff, and Thad likes my stuff, and Chandler likes the OTP stuff. So it's
you can say it's OTP, but I think it's 50-50. Yes, it's part of it. That's why a lot of people like Devin when he did Burst seat covers. All of a sudden, everybody wants to be your friend. Same with, but at the end of the day, it's 50-50. It's you. It's your personality too. That's what's kept it going where it's at now.
You are OTP.
Yep.
Yep.
People like you for you, dude. It ain't just a show.
What does OTP stand for?
on the pipe?
Oh, obviously
something?
Tyler's podcast.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, whenever I left, I said, OTP stands for obviously Tyler's podcast, and he knows it. Oh,
No,
man.
so it's been really rewarding, and like I mentioned, like meeting that guy in person down here from Connecticut with mutual friends. Like he was here staying with Zach Tussle, and I don't know him. He was just down here from Connecticut, and he listens to every episode of OTP. Like that blows my mind. Some dude a middle-aged dude hearing my voice in the middle of the woods in some mountains in North Carolina recognizes my voice and tells me he listens to OTP. People message me talking about their kids listening to OTP. Like, it's so weird that not only that all the amateur riders and stuff are listening to it, but like how prominent of people listen to it. And I swear I don't mean to sound cocky or like conceited or anything like that, but like people high up in industries like team managers, team mechanics, like pro racers, it blows my mind that people find something in this show worth listening to.
Yep. It speaks to them.
Because I'm just winging it. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It works.
Yep. Well, 2 months from now, people better be listening.
Wasn't 2 months from now, Paul.
What? Is there something in 2 months?
There's something in 2 months.
Well,
2
what?
months. Gotta listen for 2 more months, folks. It'll be something pretty cool. Tyler doesn't even know about. So.
And it pisses me off. I don't know about it. Are we allowed to name the person, or we can't even say that?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just saying 2 months, random.
Do I know anything
2
about
months.
it?
Listen to it.
I
No.
can't even say the person.
Huh?
It's your whole deal. So if I can't say the person, I can't say the person.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
But there's
I'm just saying 2
so
months.
I can't.
Yeah.
So there is a person coming on the podcast in roughly 2 months
There you go.
with some
It'll be cool to listen to.
breaking news.
Yes.
I know who the person is. I don't know what the breaking news is, and I want to know.
They're coming on this show?
They're coming on the show. They
Like
are using,
Cody Webb did? Like Ryan Sipes did? I'm just kidding.
Oh man. Yep. Exactly like them. It's one of the biggest names that could ever come on this show.
Well, you got me intrigued.
Whether or not it will happen is coming to find out. But we've talked to this person's agent, and by we I mean Paul, has talked to an agent of said person. And they have some news that Paul won't tell me about, but they have chosen OTP to come give the scoop to, right?
Yeah,
So this
pretty cool.
this information is being broke on in 2 months on OTP.
Yeah.
I thought it was, but you said that it's going to come out and then they're going to come talk about it.
Yeah.
Either way, we get the hype.
Yeah, I'm just saying. To anybody out there, 2 months from now, tune in.
But I'm not going to say who it is.
Does it start with an R?
No.
Dang it, Devin. So, all right. So going off of the whole where sit in 3 years, probably the most prominent rider in off-road that I could talk to, superstarred me, and then appeared on another not podcast, like 2 weeks later. And it pissed me off.
Who was it? I just gotta know. Who
I
cares?
mean, who's the biggest name that you could think of?
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Caleb
who-
Russell. All right.
Who allegedly won the high voltage GNC?
Okay,
No, I'm
all
not
right.
trying to talk junk. I'm like one of his biggest fans in the world. But
He's a bad dude.
I messaged him about coming on the podcast. Me and Caleb are cool. We talk at full gases. He shared my videos. We exchanged phone numbers, all sorts of stuff. But my asking about coming on the podcast just says red. Anyway, that's one of the things. So that was when we first started the show, and Devin, you and I kind of talked about it. Like that was, I don't know about for you, but for me, that was it. I was like, I'm gonna know we made it when we have Caleb Russell on the show.
Yeah.
And still to this day, like, dude, I'll think of something in the middle of a workday. I have a notes thing, like a whole thing of notes in my phone. I have one specifically dedicated to Caleb Russell, which is all these questions. And I'll, like, think of a question. I'll be like, oh, gotta write that one down. So hopefully sometime between now and 3 months, we have Caleb, or 3 years, I meant. We have Caleb on the show. Especially with this being his last year at SNGNCC. That's something that I've wanted ever since the show first started.
That's odd. How old is he now?
30.
He's
Just
going to
turned
go
30.
run nationals? That's why he's going away from GNCC, or he's just quitting? I don't know.
I don't know if that's public information.
Well,
But he
that's pretty
unfollowed me, so
public
he's
to
probably
I
not
know
listening.
I wouldn't do
So
it.
this is his last year XC1 in GNCC. He has said his career goal is to win the ISDE. He wants to win the outright ISDE because there's only been 2 Americans that have ever done it. One of those 2 has been ignored by On the Pipe podcast. I'm really sorry. No, but so that's his goal. So he's going to race sprint enduros. He's still going to race full gas. He's the only person to win more than one full gas championship. And the rumor floating around is that he's going to race outdoors.
Yeah, that's what I was.
He's going to
that's what I
race
heard.
full gas and outdoors.
Huh. Okay.
Definitely racing full gas.
He's a bad. I remember he and both Josh Strain did Red Bud. I don't remember if they qualified or not. I can't remember.
What
but
year was it?
regardless.
11.
Was it when Strang was on Suzuki's?
Yes.
Man, I should know. I don't.
He
remember.
did qualify. He did qualify.
I thought it was the coolest thing ever, though. that
He
they
got
ever
a
did.
point or so. He finished in the top 20.
Yeah.
Here it is. I got a message. I'm getting yelled at.
You getting yelled at, my friend?
I'm getting yelled at by Josh Strang.
Because you're not playing Call of Duty.
Yes, we're in happy hour, double points right now. We have a regiment. North Australians. No, but so, and that's the thing too with like, and I've kind of started this thing where I'm trying to not care as much about what I say because that's what the podcast should be about. Instead of being politically correct, I want to be a podcast about what's going on. And one of those things going on, I don't even remember what I was going to say now.
Well, dude, that's a fine line to walk. You see all these people on Vital talking about bad reporters. You know what? You go to the NASCAR industry or football or anything like that. True journalists, report everything. But the problem is, those industries are so huge. Like the players don't know the reporters personally, whereas our industry is so small. For example, you look at Armored Graphics, like where we've gotten in a few years and who we know or whatever. But same with you, Devin. But it's like that's the problem is you get most dirt bikers, whether they're pro or not, they're just regular old dudes down to earth. We all share the passion of riding. So like your journalist, if you will, they get to know these guys, and it's like, man, how do you spill the beans, early of something that whereas if you did it in the NFL or NBA or things like that, things get leaked all the time.
People make a living doing that.
Yeah, but those journalists and players aren't friends. And we're in this industry, there are players and journalists who choose not to be friends for that purpose, but naturally it's such a small industry and we're all just down-to-earth dudes. You end up becoming friends, and that's where it's tough, man, to be a journalist and like, I know the inside scoop, and it's like, well, how do I say that without losing a friend, or whatever. So it's definitely tougher in this industry to be true to the word.
And how political everything is, and as much as I hate to say it, but MX Sports rules the damn industry. They own everything. And so you get on their bad side, now you're on everyone's bad side. Like, you're blackballed. And so it's tough to find out that information and report it. Like, I knew about Snowshoe getting canceled before it got canceled. I knew about Stu going to Sherco. I knew about Cody Webb going to Sherco before any of that stuff. Like, you find all this stuff out, and it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't, because it's going to get the attention. Like, for instance, when
it's going to get dropped at some point, that information, but more than likely it's going to be from the organization's own media outlet that drops it,
So this year,
don't
Steel
get
Creek GNCC is a perfect example of that. I found out Steel Creek was getting canceled. And this one actually made no sense because GNCC posted it for like 30 seconds and deleted it. And we caught it when they posted it.
At that point, it's public knowledge. There you go.
We posted it and screenshotted it. And so I had all the information and I posted it on thepipepodcast.com. And within like 3.5 minutes, dude, I had a call from Morgantown, West Virginia telling me to take it down. So why should I take it down? You posted it.
Yeah.
Like, you want to know my source? You.
Yeah.
And you didn't ask either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's like it's so weird, especially when you start getting into like guys' contracts and what they're doing, and everything is so hush hush, and everything is like such behind closed doors, and I don't get it because like that's what people want to hear.
It is. I think that's holding us back as far as the sport too. I don't know if our fan base would grow based on things getting out, you know, but as far as ratings and chatter throughout social media and all, things getting out is what creates that, you know, creates those storylines.
So one of the finest lines that I've walked right on the edge was reporting about high voltage. Mm-hmm. The GNCC that Toth was leading the entire race, except for a very small amount. Caleb Russell was on a bike that was blowing up, that was stuck in second gear, could not shift out of second gear, and somehow passed Josh Toth in a field section, stuck in second gear on a blown up bike to win the race. And kind of like you were saying, like putting that stuff out there, if something is true, I don't see why anybody could get mad at me for posting it. Like Steel Creek being canceled. If it's true and I say it's canceled, how can you get mad at me for it?
Yeah.
Snowshoe getting canceled. If it's true, how can you get mad at me for it? With that thing, like I understand if I go spread some rumors and say it like it's the gospel and it's not true, then I look stupid, and then nothing I say is gonna have any validation after that. But if it's true, then it's true. And kind of like riding that line with the high voltage GNCC, I didn't take the common consensus. I didn't read Facebook comments and report on it. I called the team manager that saw it happen. I called 2 of the riders that watched it happen. I called the person directly involved with it. I had text messages from the team manager that caused all this stuff to happen. Like, I had the facts. And I still had some like blowback from that because of it. And in my mind, something like that, like, it was the truth. It's what happened. I mean, Josh Toth was leading the whole race, had a perfectly good bike, and his last lap was a minute and a half slower than any other race he had out there, or any other lap that he had out there. Like,
that's good reporting, man.
When something's that blatant, but like that's the thing in this industry, it's so tight knit and it's so close quarters and behind closed doors that even when you report on something like that, I'm seen as the bad guy.
Not at all. Not to me, but obviously if the people who didn't want that out there, yeah, you would be the bad guy. But no, I think that's awesome, and it goes back to what I was saying. It's such a small industry. You tell the truth, but there you again, you go back to, let's just look at from a podcast standpoint.
They got the most downloads.
There you go. That's what did it. But it wasn't posed. It wasn't staged to make this a good ratings podcast. Let's do this. It's just telling it what it is.
The same stuff any buddies would be talking about after the race, sitting.
Anybody else out there in the woods?
Yeah.
Who was out there? What do you call them? The mud fleas or whatever. The guys who were at all the mud holes or whatever. Like anybody else could have seen what happened out there, and gone back and said it. You just have a bigger stage to say it on. But I like that as fair reporting. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And as far as paying, if I paid a lot of money to drive across the country as a spectator to watch that, or if I paid a lot of money to come race that race, the last thing I want is something like that, being fixed, a fixed result or anything like that. Like that's being cheated right there.
Imagine if you're the person sitting second place in points.
Yeah. That's it. So, yeah.
That's your career, and that's what you're doing for a living to support your family.
There's team tactics to a degree in a championship. I get it. If it's down to the last race, we've seen it in Supercross.
Motocross?
and motocross. But, I'm not even halfway through a season, I guess. And whatever, it's ridiculous to me. So, anyways.
I agree. But, once again, throwing this disclaimer out before people start running their mouths, it had nothing to do with any of the racers. It had nothing to do with Caleb, for sure. It kind of had nothing to do with Toth. Like, they're not the ones to blame. And I think that's the way that it came across, is a lot of people were seeing that as me blaming them, and that's not the case at all.
No.
And that's why Caleb was so pissed coming through the line. Like, he doesn't want that. But I don't mean to dig up more dirt.
It's not dirt, man. It's real life. So, happy
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, that's the end of it.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's been 3 years. It all started in this house, about 10 feet away from where I'm sitting at right now, where we're all sitting at. So, I mean, once again, thank you guys. Wouldn't be here without either one of you, and I mean that 100%. Without the idea or the ambition or the push, this would not be what it is. So, thank you guys all for pushing it and starting it and being a part of it since ground zero and still being here 3 years later. And then thank you, each and every person that's been out there listening and people that continue to listen. I hope you're enjoying the show. I always encourage feedback. I want to hear what people have to say. I want to hear what people think. Because, I mean, it is about the fans and it's about the people listening. So, thank you each and every one of you. As I mentioned before, check out armorgraphics.com. Brand new site, brand new graphics, brand new stuff, brand new promo code OTP15. The first 5 people to use that code will get 30% off. Yeah. Any closing words on anybody's part?
No, just thank you for asking me to come back for this anniversary show. I think it's pretty special. I really appreciate the opportunity and to sit here with you guys and eat these Krispy Kreme donuts right now.
Dude, you're gonna get diabetes because you just like ate 3 within minutes.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
No, it's been a fun ride. And Tyler, I think you need to keep going, keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing is working. Yeah. Well, thanks for having, invite me back on and everything, and thanks for letting me be a part of the ride too at the beginning. So just keep doing what you're doing, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. 2 months. 2 months. Check
2
back
months. Big news.
in. 2 months.
First letters and names don't matter, but 2 months.
Yep.
Until then, we're going to be going strong. OTP Tuesday is coming at you every Tuesday. This is our second show this week, the 30-year anniversary show with myself, Tyler Shepardson, former co-host and founding member of OTP, Devin Byrum, and also one of the guys here since the beginning and the reason the podcast exists, Paul Sachak with Armored Graphics. We're going to have Jacob Fetty on later this week. I don't know who else from the 739 ride that we're going to be joined by, but might be somebody, might not be somebody, I don't know. Either way, we'll hear about that 739-mile ride from Morganton, North Carolina to somewhere in Florida. Yeah, thanks each and every one of you guys for listening. Check us out on thepipepodcast.com. Let a buddy know about this show. Whatever you're listening to this on, please just go and click subscribe. If you're on iTunes, click subscribe. Stitcher, subscribe. Facebook, Instagram, follow us.
Call Ryan Sipes. Call your buddy. He's
Ryan
waiting on
Sipes,
the phone
I'm sorry.
Tyler Cool Guy, Ryan Sipes. Just know that. Hey,
Ryan's like, here's my number. Call me when you text me when you want me to be on the show.
think of the content he could have had from
Crickets.
this. Think of the show that could have been. This dude's a legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Tyler just wants to play.
Ryan's still sitting there, dude.
Tyler just wants to play Call of Duty, bro.
That's the level OTP is at now, man. You got to do something to get on here.
You need me more than I need you.
Ryan, I'm so sorry. Fans of OTP, I'm so sorry. We're going to make it happen. I got his number. He told me to text him. I didn't, but I will. Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next show.